The thing that clients are most likely to complain about are costs and delay.
The level of costs, the fact they weren't advised about costs, cost estimates were not particularly clear.
If there's going to be a complaint that is put forward by a client, it's going to be either a lack of communication or insufficient communication.
They may complain about how long it took, that things took far too long and they weren't told about that. Give a very, very clear letter of advice at the beginning. Make sure your advice is set out in very simple terms. Make sure your cost estimates are very accurate as you can make them, having regard to all the contingencies.
The important thing is that you give feedback to your client on a regular basis so they understand both costs that are being incurred and why there is a delay or why things aren't moving as forward as quickly as they might anticipate.
The fundamental reason is you must, as a matter of professional conduct. The SRA Code of Conduct 2011 Chapter 2 specifies that you must have a formal complaints procedure.
A complaints procedure isn't merely a compliance issue, it's also an opportunity to protect your reputation with the client and to rebuild relationships. It's an opportunity to actually grab triumph out of what might be a difficult situation.
There are certain elements which are key to a complaints management process. And the first one, I think, is transparency and accessibility. There must be a clear complaints procedure which the client can access. And that should be set out on your website, if you have one, should certainly be set out in the client care letter or an attachment to the client care letter. And certainly at the end of any transaction, at the end of any dispute resolution, they should be informed of those rights as well.
Respond to it, make sure it's acknowledged, but the first port of call should be to try and arrange for that client to come and sit in the office to have an informal discussion about the issues. 95% of complaints can be dealt with in-house. It's just having the right approach.
You've got to have a system of recording. There's no good these complaints coming in, being dealt with and then just lost in the ether. Someone needs to sit down, keep a record of them in a central location on a central database, and they've got to be analysed so that that problem doesn't occur again. They've got to be recorded so you can keep a record for the SRA should they wish to investigate as well. If you had a formal complaints procedure in place to begin with, it may never get anywhere near a court, it may never get anywhere near the legal ombudsman. You may be able to deal with it within the firm. That will protect your reputation, and that will keep the client happy.
The other advantage with a decent complaints procedure is it's an opportunity for a firm to identify what may be significant training issues for them. It may be there are repeated issues that arise, and it may be that either a particular individual isn't meeting the standards required, or that this is an indicative of general poor performance in a particular area.
If you're looking to improve your complaints process, the first thing to do is to get it down on paper. Not only is it mandatory to have it written and within your office manuals, but it's something which should be accessible by the whole team. So have it in a shared folder somewhere which every single part of your office is able to access it.
Ask yourself, ask the firm itself, what is the ethos, what's the perception we have of complaints? Do we regard them just as a problem, a nuisance? Do we immediately regard them as vexatious? Do we tend to immediately regard the client as just wanting a discount on the bill? To look at the complaint in substance. Most clients are not going to complain on a whim. There is some substantive problem there. And so firstly, it may be just a matter of changing the approach within the firm to how complaints are perceived. Complaints should be perceived as something in effect beneficial for the firm so the firm can improve.
One of the steps that you might take is actually to talk to a number of the clients who've been through it and ask them what were the positive things about the complaints process that they should keep, and what are the things that didn't work, so that they can actually build on that.